Well, Tej, after All In ended with Hangman winning the AEW World title, and the Death Riders are still around in a tag match against Hangman, and attacking Colt Cabana and interacting with each other, kind of knew this was coming, and we found out at the very end of Dynamite tonight that Hangman Page heard what Jon Moxley said, which is, I know the Hangman who walked to the ring, and I know he had enough to beat me, but I don't think after that kind of fight he can stand up and beat me again. Yeah, I love Moxley going, I'm not a bitch. I'm not going to complain. I lost. But I'm going to say you can't do it twice. And Hangman came out and said, I'll take you up on it. And so next week on Dynamite, AEW World Heavyweight title match, rematch. I mean, I think it's fine to have a rematch with ex-champion who held the belt that long against the existing champion to extend the feud a little bit. In general, I think the pertinent downside here is the level of match that they had at All In felt like a blow-off, and so this sort of feels a little bit, like a come down from that level of intensity. But I will say, before I throw it to you, I think they made the best of that kind of headwind. That's like, how do you follow up what they did at All In? With Moxley going, I don't think you can do it again. So what do you think?
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that it's a blessing and a curse of AEW's booking style that rather than explore the fallout of a blow-off feud on pay-per-view on the preceding episode of TV with a promo, a lot of times they choose to do it with a match. Obviously, a rematch with some kind of different stipulation that then is the segue for both competitors to move off in different directions. Obviously, when that works for them, it's great because it means that the pay-per-view blow-off match can just be that, the blow-off match, the end of the feud, the coronation of a new champion. You end on a happy note. You don't have to worry about cramming more into that match than you need to. But the negative to that is the follow-up on TV will automatically be viewed as lesser because it is the follow-up on TV. And in this case, Hangman versus Mox, the history was there for years. We've sung praises about AEW's more focused storytelling in 2025. The culmination of All In, both in and out of kayfabe, felt like this monumental moment, the turning of a page. So going back to that in any way, shape, or form in the aftermath is going to feel like, all right, we're just kind of rehashing what we already did. This doesn't have the same spark to it, doesn't have the same anticipation. That being said, I think that, they've automatically set it up in a very, very different light. Both men are in very, very different spots. Obviously, as Hangman said, you're the challenger this time. You're going to play by my rules, and I want this to be a very different match. Everybody's banned this time around. It'll be a different experience. It'll likely end with Hangman and Mox separating, at least for the future. So I'm still tentatively on board.
Doesn't matter that probably nobody thinks that Hangman is going to lose the title to Moxley next week. I mean, it's not the fault of the story. I just think fans are savvy enough to kind of know. Yeah, I mean, they basically christened Hangman as this is his era. This is Moxley's kind of last gasp. And again, it's a TV match. They're not trying to sell a pay-per-view to people with it. But does that matter, or will people tune in just to see? Do you agree with my premise that people are going to think, oh yeah, I mean, Hangman's winning, of course. But does that matter? Will people still tune in to kind of see how he goes about it? Because he has banned. Because he's champ, he gets to pick the rules. That was his statement to Mox. So everyone's banned from ringside, and the only person otherwise is the referee in the ring. It can be a validation for Hangman to beat Mox and a turning point for Mox's character, and I think that's what people will be mainly tuning in for. Not the thought that this is a toss-up who's going to walk out with the belt.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think fans at this point know that if Mox regains the title, it would be a monumental error in booking. And, the intent is for Hangman to have, if not a long, then at least a very substantial reign. The reason I think that won't be seen as a negative for next week is people tune out if a match is predictable. Mm-hmm. Knowing the most likely winner doesn't always mean that a match is predictable. In this case, the big kind of question mark up right now is the interference. Now, obviously, the Death Riders, somewhat atypically for AEW, a lot of Mox's reign was based on heavy, heavy interference. For any match involving the Death Riders where interference is explicitly banned, number one question that pops into your head is, all right, so how are we going to circumvent that? Who's going to show up? How is this going to end in shenanigans somehow. It feels like a Chekhov's gun that's too deliberately placed to not ignore. I think that wild card is going to be what people tune in for, because you've got Darby waiting in the wings. You've got the possibility of the writers turning on Mox, of the writers turning on Yuta. We got Chris Statlander that's been leaning toward a villainous turn in the previous few weeks. I think there's enough sort of wild cards in the mix that fans will, walk in with anticipation.
Yeah, and this is a pivot point. Next week is a pivot point, and they decided to eke 3 weeks out of 3 episodes of Dynamite out of the post Hangman and Moxley all-in match, and that's fine. I mean, it's fine, and I think you laid out all the different things that are in play here. They played up the idea that they abandoned Wheeler Yuta in the earlier match. Wheeler seems enough of a pushover and a hang around that he has no self. Let's say no self-confidence, no self-esteem, no self-respect to stand up for that, if that's how he perceives it. That's kind of how they portray him. But yeah, there's a number of things in play. I mean, the most intriguing thing is, how does Mox reset himself after coming up short? They teased the last couple of weeks. Is he? The commentators brought it up. There was some body language. How is he affected by this? Clearly, he just needs a rematch to find out, was it a one-off by Hangman and he's better than me now? And if so, how will he cope with that? Which I think is what we're going to obviously face next week. But in his head, he's like, maybe I can beat him, and then he'll get a rematch, and I'll beat him again, and it'll be a one-off fluke, and I'll go back to running this place. So how Mox responds, presumably to coming up short twice in a row when there's nobody to help. Presumably they stick to that. We didn't get I wish they'd say, if someone interferes, you're out of luck. You don't get a title shot, again, as long as I hold the belt. I mean, it's kind of a thing. However they do it. Because, I mean, Hangman and Tony go, don't interfere. Well, don't they say that all the time? I mean, can't they just...
Except for Continental rules. Yes. It's always obeyed, magically.
Yeah, that's the thing, magically. So, when Hangman goes, nobody can be at ringside, what does that mean? If you allow... I don't want to be all pedantic about it, but, if people are at ringside, they're still not allowed to interfere without a DQ. So... if all you say is, well, this time when you interfere, you get a running start, but you don't get to be there until you decide to interfere, and then you run to the ring and interfere, and then we're going to DQ you, it's not really a stipulation. I guess... Well,
yeah. I mean, let's talk about being pedantic, because I think when, especially nowadays where fans are trained to look at those little details, I feel like when you get pedantic in that way, it's almost a tell of what you're going to do. And I think the fact that they didn't lay out, if anyone interferes, then immediate, you lose, you don't get a title shot. That's why I think that there will end up being some interference. The match is going to end in some kind of kerfuffle, and that's going to be the pivot that brings Mox to his next chapter, or whatever that is.
Because Hangman should have said, no one's allowed at ringside, and if anybody interferes at all, they'll be DQ'd. Now, I still have a problem with that, because the rule in every world title match is if someone interferes, it's a DQ. I don't think they really think this through. It's like when Excalibur says the match is thrown out. No, when someone interferes on behalf of the heel loses by DQ. There's so many people who are just into moves and insults, bombastic comments, hardcore angles. They don't think, there has to be some sort of foundational logic to this. And now Hangman's going to look foolish for not being specific enough, to really rule things out. And again, I mean, I just want to underline this. All Hangman said is you can't be at ringside. He didn't say you can't interfere, because every match you're not allowed to interfere. It's just you happen to sometimes be closer to being able to interfere illegally. Then in next week, they have to be further out before they interfere illegally. It's just silly. It drives me a little nuts. I don't know how much most people care, but I think it undercuts the babyface seeming like he's thought things through. If what you're predicting, Tej, is what happens, which is people interfere anyway. There should have been some sort of stake. Hangman could have said, we're going to have 3 referees, 1 in the ring, 2 at ringside. I get to pick them. And if anybody comes close to the ring, Hangman, if anyone even approaches the ring, and it could be my friend. It doesn't even matter. I'll tell everyone to stay away. But if any of your friends or anyone else approaches the ring, the match is stopped, you get DQ'd, and you don't get a title shot against me ever again. I mean, just raise the stakes. Why not? And he didn't do that. Anyway. Goodfellow1422 says they can clarify that detail at the start of next week's show and on social media earlier if that's the plan. I would like if they did it on social sooner than later. The problem with that, Goodfellas, you're assuming that the points, Tej and mostly me, I'm the one, hammering this, but he agrees, I think, are making is not going to seem important enough to anybody in AEW to clarify next week on the show or go on social media, because it's all about, is the match good and did someone say bitch? So anyway, I don't mean to sound so cynical. I'm just like, I'm hammering it. I'm hammering it for effect, a little heavy for fun, but
sure.
But it is a pattern. Like you said, the magic of the Continental Classic. If we tell you don't do things you normally illegally do, and then people don't because it's the Continental. All right, let's.
You're in a spicy mood today, huh, Wade?
I'm actually not. I mean, it comes across that way, but yeah. I thought it was So let's actually pause.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just going to say before we start. Yeah.
You
ahead,
shut up, Tej.
Tej.
Listen to me. I've never told anyone to shut up before. I'm telling you. No, I just want to see your reaction. Since you said I was spicy, I said I'll lean into that. Ryan Soloria says not everyone looks at social though. Just wanted to get that out there. Tej, I'm done being mean to you. What did you have to say?
I was just gonna say, you know how sad I am that I wasn't here for an episode that involved Daddy Ass.
Yeah.
Because Spicy Wade plus Billy Gunn making an appearance I think you would have leapt through the screen and throttled me.
You do acknowledge that Billy Gunn has ruined Anthony Bone's career, right? Silence.
Mr. Gunn, if you're watching this, I'm a big fan.
That is ridiculous.
I love what you're doing with Anthony Bowens. I love your AEW run.
That is ridiculous. All right, let's there's some stuff to talk about on the show, including what the hell is going on with Hurt Syndicate and MJF. That's so weird. But it wasn't like this crazy blockbuster show, and so I'm kind of trying to have some fun with it. Anyway, let's pause and introduce what this is. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025, following AEW Dynamite live on TBS and HBO Max. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show. I'm the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. Here's the latest paper copy, hot off the presses. If people want to subscribe to that, they can. PWTorch.com/GoVIP has details on getting the paper copy delivered to your mailbox. What issue was this? Issue 1,931. Do the math. About 50 issues a year. We've been doing it a long time, and you can get almost all of them online in a PDF and or all text format on our VIP website. If you want to learn about wrestling history from an entity, the Torch, and led by me the whole way, that doesn't have a stake in spinning things, like pretty much anything that WWE puts out. For instance, about their own product, be it a documentary or a wrestler-hosted podcast. So those are valuable. They're fun, but we cut through the BS and tell you straight because that's our brand. What incentive do we have to do otherwise? So it's fun to look back at all the major happenings the last 35-plus years and see how we covered them. Read about it, listen to it in our archives, pwtorch.com/GoVIP. But we're here to talk Dynamite tonight, and my co-host is Tej Narayanan. He is a PWTorch.com contributor because I also edit the website and oversee and contribute to the website PWTorch.com. Tej, tell people about your contributions to that website.
Hello, people of the internet, online and in person, wherever you are listening to this. My name is Tej Narayanan, and I write a column on PWTorch.com called the SmackDown Feud Tracker, where we break down all currently ongoing feuds on WWE's Friday Night SmackDown. We do a little vague predictions on where the product may be going. We evaluate the storytelling, and we just have a lot of fun along the way. Come check us out. Again, that's PWTorch.com, the SmackDown Feud Tracker. But today, as a fan of professional wrestling in whatever form it may take, I'm here covering AEW Dynamite, and I'm so excited.
Awesome. We encourage you, by the way, if you're catching us on YouTube and you listen to podcasts also, search Wade Keller in your podcast app and subscribe to this post show. The podcast feed includes content that's not on YouTube, so you get some bonus content too. Search Wade Keller, subscribe to the Red Logo Show. That's the post show. We also have our main podcast, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast. That's the blue logo. It appears the same. My face is on it, my name, but it's the podcast. It's not the post-show format. It's regular podcasts, including our weekly flagship. Yesterday, longtime Pro Wrestling Torch columnist Greg Parks joined me. We had a really fun, in-depth discussion previewing SummerSlam and getting into AEW topics and more. So check that out if you haven't yet. That is only on the Wade Keller podcast feed. It is not a YouTube show. So again, if you're discovering us on YouTube, you need to subscribe to the podcast by searching Wade Keller. That also includes interviews, our pay-per-view previews, flashback episodes going back 15 years. It's really fun listening back to essentially this format back in 2010, and our coverage of everything going on then, including, is Paul Heyman going to take over TNA Creative? That was a big topic of discussion for a couple weeks intensely. So let's shift to telling people how they can be part of the show, and then we'll get on to the discussion. You can email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. We'll get to emails in a moment. Also, the chat room. If you're watching us live on YouTube, by the way, search PWTorch or Wade Keller on YouTube, or just go to youtube.com/PWTorch. And you can find links to our live streams and also our back catalog of content. Frank Pettiani's Wrestling Then and Now is on there too, with flashbacks going back 10, 15, 20, 30 years. More than 30 years, actually, in some cases, with a co-host reviewing major and not so major, but always newsworthy and fun pay-per-views in pro wrestling's history. That is on our YouTube page too. So you can, they're pretty evergreen, so it's fun to listen to them, and a real cool array of co-hosts are part of that series. And if you are discovering us on YouTube or watching us on YouTube, please like the show, please comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for that. Finally, another way to participate is if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, go to the Patreon VIP page, or my TV report on Dynamite tonight on the PWTorch VIP website, and find the link to be a video, or you can turn the camera off and be an audio-only caller like our Blog Talk Radio days. But we're here to talk Dynamite, so let's pivot back to that, Tej. And I want to get your thoughts on what the heck is going on with MJF and Hurt Syndicate. What, like, my only, and this is pure speculation, is in real life, MJF annoyed MVP, Shelton, or Bobby so much that they said, let's end the storyline. We don't want anything to do with him on air. Because I can't think of a storyline logic to this. Out of nowhere, Hurt Syndicate are hired by Adam Copeland to go after FTR. The fans are cheering Hurt Syndicate again. Nobody's buying them as heels. Lashley shoves MJF against the locker room, and MJF says, hey, you're supposed to be figuring out how to make me world champion. He looks to Shelton with a whimper, Shelton, and Shelton shakes his head and walks away. And then MVP looks at him, shakes his head, walks away. What was all that about? Is there something in writing in the contract he signed that's going to be revealed that backfires on them? Are they abandoning the storyline? I'm confused. I'm open to being unconfused. Tej, explain to me what you think happened.
So first off, I liked that Hurt Syndicate was hired by Adam Copeland. They didn't come to the aid of Adam Copeland. They were hired by Adam Copeland.
They are
to take
for
out
hire.
FTR. That to me is the crux of the Hurt Syndicate's characters compared to MJF's characters. The Hurt Syndicate are heels because winning is what matters at any cost, but they are not necessarily evil people, and that's been hammered home throughout their entire reign. Technically, they'll hurt other heels. They'll side with faces situationally if it leads to them getting what they want. They don't have an agenda. They're not quote-unquote evil people. And I think MJF at his core, as we've seen throughout his tenure in AEW, is an evil person in kayfabe. And they've allied because they've found some common ground. But post All In, MJF's got his golden ticket back to the world title, and he's been open saying that the Hurt Syndicate is his way back into the world title scene. That's why he didn't get into the Owen. That's why he wasn't chasing world title shots, because he said, if I have these goons by my side, I can waltz in and the deck is stacked in my favor. And I think you saw those two different ideologies clash this time, because MJF's complaining about them doing business. They're saying, hey, we're just doing business. Shut your trap. Stop whining. Whereas he's just like, hey, we're the team. You're supposed to be doing this with me. It felt a little clumsy, just because, again, pro wrestling, and they haven't lived as a team cohesively enough to really sell this. But I do like the idea that the divisions are widening almost immediately now that MJF has his cash in, his ego's growing again, and he's going to dip back into the old Wardlow MJF dynamic of like, I'm the star here. I'm the one in world title contention, and your job is to help me get there and nothing else. So I don't think that the storyline's being abandoned. I think it is being sped up because they're starting to realize like the meat of the story is eventually seeing Bobby Lashley whoop MJF from here across the U.S. But the execution was just a little off. I will agree with you there.
Yeah,
What What do you think of my kind of analysis there?
Well, I think the question I have for you is, was this timeline planned all along? It just seems sudden. I mean, logically, in the chat is saying, oh, yeah, MJF ran his mouth. Okay, but do we really think they went to all that trouble and they were buddy-buddy last week, and now we're somewhere where I thought we'd be in a month or 2 or 3? That's the part. I'm not saying you can't say it's logical. My question is, I feel like I stepped away from Dynamite in some vortex for 6 weeks because they didn't accomplish anything in this storyline. I mean, other than have hurt. I mean, if the foundation of Hurt Syndicate is we like to hurt people and we'll do it for money, why did they agree to bring MJF into their fold, and what new information do they have that has led to them not wanting him there, including MVP walking away from a guy who was an old friend? I get into that. Like, what happened this week that wasn't there last week? And is it and whatever has happened, is that enough to be something that wasn't foreseeable or was game changing compared to their decision to align with him in the first place? Because that was weeks and weeks of build up, and suddenly it's over, or it appears to be over.
I mean, it was weeks and weeks of buildup, but I do like that, once they gave the thumbs up, the issues between them didn't magically just go away. Bobby was always still a little tired of MJF shenanigans. He's like, all right, calm down, simmer down. Like, fine, I made the choice. I said yes, but cool it, kid. And I think it all leads back to MJF getting the Casino Gauntlet title shot, right? Once he has what he wants, MJF the character, his ego ascends to astronomical levels. He stops putting up any pretenses of caring about anyone besides himself, and the consequences catch up to him. I do agree that it was a little fast, but I don't think it was out of character for, even MVP, who wants to bat for this kid, who wants to bat for MJF, to just say, like, all right, you're acting out of line, take some time to cool off, I'm going with them.
But what did MJF do that was out of line? He's saying the same thing he said from the beginning. I'm here to help you win tag titles. You're here to help me win the world title. He got upset that they took money from Copeland when they should be focusing on him. So that's the answer to my own question. But is that enough to totally have them react the way that they did? To me, it doesn't ring. I don't say it doesn't ring credible. That MJF being selfish and self-centered and a little thrown off by them helping Copeland is enough for them to just go, okay, all that everything we went through for a month doesn't count anymore.
I mean, that's where I guess your mileage may vary. For someone who's Bobby Lashley size, slamming me into a locker might be the equivalent as me saying, hey, stop for a second.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a level-headed reaction in his brain. I don't really know if there's a concrete answer. I do agree with you that it's not as fleshed out as it could have been, but
it feels sudden to you, doesn't it?
It does feel sudden,
okay.
But not in a way that's out of character.
Okay.
It feels like, all right, this came out of nowhere, but Max started acting up way more than he usually did, and this is why. It's unsatisfying. It's not the smoothest way to tell the story creatively, but it all stems from something concrete based on character.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll read some comments here from the chat to get their take on this, because I've only glanced at it.
Curious to see what chat says on this one.
Yeah, so Ryan Solorio says, yeah, like Hurt Syndicate were playing heel for about a month when MJF joined, and now they're suddenly acting face. Go to okay, there's comments on other angles mixed in here, so I got to scroll a little bit. Let's see. Okay, there's a bunch that I need to scroll past to get to the segment where everyone's talking about this. Here we go. So Ryan Sawyer says, yeah, MJF and Hurt Syndicate were buddy last week. Joe Schmo said the Hurt Syndicate working for Edge made no sense. With the APA, it made sense working for bigger guys because they were lower on the card. Zach Barber, a PWTorch contributor, AEW defender, often, not always, says Ryan, MJF ran off at the mouth tonight and messed things up for himself. Sadler version 3 said, I hated Hurt Syndicate working for Edge too, but I can at least buy the explanation that Edge paid them off. Them turning on MJF so quickly felt ridiculous, though. They rushed this turn like crazy, and that's still where I am. Dennis Klein says, says Hurt Syndicate has been a bit of a mess since the start. The fact that they are over shows how much the fan base loves them. It's about time to finally get this right and make them babyface. So that's what I'm wondering, if they just kind of said, you know what, fans keep cheering Hurt Syndicate. It's not working. We need MJF to be a clear-cut heel against Hangman, and fans really like Hurt Syndicate, so we're just gonna throw out everything we were doing and do that. So Zach Barber adds, MJF let his mouth overload his behind Wade. This is not the first time someone's done that. And I'm not denying that's the case. I just think if we think about the logical pace of storylines, this feels compressed. It feels sudden. It feels abrupt. Yep. Derek Mitchell says, if MVP, Shelton, and Bobby are smart veterans, why wouldn't they be aware of MJF's motives, which makes them look duh? Ryan Solorio says, don't forget the contract, Wade. I did mention that, but we always thought it was Hurt Syndicate who would have a trick. Was it? I'm trying to remember. Was it Hurt Syndicate with the contract that MJF had to sign? Did they devise it, or was it MJF who devised the contract they signed?
They devised it, but MJF alluded to the fact that he made a change or two.
Gotcha. Okay, so that explains a little bit of my confusion then. So maybe there's something, a change with MJF. It feels sudden, but he's going to go, not so fast, guys. I made a change to the contract. We all signed it, and you are now beholden to me because X, Y, Z. Maybe the stipulation is if Bobby Lashley throws me against a locker, then I control their careers. I don't know. Maybe I had great foresight. Decline goes, yeah, what's in that contract? Ramen Noodle says, how long does one have to be exposed to MJF before they realize how much of an asshole he actually is?
Well, in the case of Bobby Lashley, about 10 seconds. So there was that.
Yes. Joe Schmo said, yeah, them getting paid off just felt weird. Getting paid to be muscle for younger guys who haven't made a whole career and been world champion. Sadler version 3 says, I think MJF apologizes and he's back in the group next week. That's how ridiculous today was. Scott TPA says there's no defending this. Derek Mitchell says the whole angle of MJF joining Hurt Syndicate was clunky at the start with the assumption that Cedric Alexander would eventually join and be a swerve, but not surprised by Tony Khan booking. I will keep reading these as they come in here, and then I'll throw to you, Tej. Zach Barber says it feels sudden, but it's in line with who MJF is. I agree with both those things. It's in line with who he is, but my point is it feels sudden. Ryan Solorio says, but the story is they all have to agree, or it's a no. If no one wants MJF out, they all agreed. Well, I think once a deal was signed, maybe that's different. Standard Deviation said, to me, it feels like the timing of this breakup wasn't planned in advance. Scott TPA said, I was confused by the booking of Hurt Syndicate tonight. First the Cope thing, and then the MJF segment. Sadler version 3 says Hurt Syndicate were basically de facto baby faces for most of their run until MJF joined. And Goodfellas said, yeah, are they speeding up the MJF angle to be Hangman's next program? I thought there was more meat on the bone for this story. And Derek said, the Hurt Syndicate tonight went from nonprofit to profit. They're morphing the APA. Okay, we already kind of covered that. So finally, Sadler just said, I thought MJF made the contract with his lawyer and MVP was mad about it. And Rizella says it's all going to come back to the contract. So I think it's a good place to end. Tej, hopefully you remembered your thoughts. I just wanted to get through those because I would not be able to circle back. Go ahead.
I think this is going to feed into a lot of other things that happened this week. It feels like the Hurt Syndicate are being put in line for a big moment at Forbidden Door, because remember, we've got an entire tournament for a World Tag Team title shot, which, the Hurt Syndicate currently holds.
Right. Yeah.
There's been a lot of chatter online, and there's been a few teases just with the word Pinnacle that MJF is going to join back up with FTR, reform the Pinnacle. We've got the Hurt Syndicate now in FTR's orbit. By beating them up, they've, they're now in the Hurt Syndicate's crosshairs. They've also moved to the next stage of the tournament. We could be seeing Hurt Syndicate versus FTR at Forbidden Door. We could see a turn happen there.
Yep.
Not to mention FTR is also in a feud with, I almost called him Edge, with Cope, with Adam Copeland. And that is the long-rumored dream match when Christian Cage eventually turns face and the Edge and Christian tag team reunites in AEW. It feels like we're circling a couple of things with the major players in the tag division, and MJF was always meant to be like a wild card within that world that fuels that multi-team rivalry. And it felt like this is where we change topics a little bit and talk about like the Adam Copeland and Christian Cage reunion, how the timing of that has felt a little bit off due to the dissolution of the patriarchy. but it feels like a couple things behind the scenes have had to be adjusted for timing on the fly, and it's led to a few abrupt moments like this, like staging, this faux breakup, if this was a final breakup, in just one quick segment after being buddy-buddy for so long.
Yeah, and Chris Johnson says the announcers talked about the relationship being over between MJF and Hurt Syndicate, or as if it was. It felt, kind of final in that sense. And then, and then the Copeland situation feels like it ought to tie in more than just a one-off of, haha, you said I can't beat you up, but I can hire people to beat you up. Is there more to it? And then does it all basically? Did Tony Khan come up with an idea in the last week for a tag tournament and a rebooking of what he wants to do with the tag division? And in part of the sacrifice was the pace of this story, had to be sped up. Chris Johnson said it didn't make sense that Cope would hire Hurt Syndicate until they turned on MJF and are clearly baby faces. It's still a rushed mess. I mean, you could say Hurt Syndicate.
That one I'll disagree with.
Yeah, go ahead, Tej. Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page there.
Yeah, that one I think can more be excused by Cope just being a crafty babyface. He's like, all right, I can't hurt FTR. Well, I'm going to hire some people to hurt FTR instead. How about the guys that always hurt people and are extremely brutal? Yeah, sure, I'll throw some money their way. That feels like more of an in-character moment on Adam Copeland's side rather than the Hurt Syndicate's changing alignment. Because they've proven that they've been able to work situationally babyface in the past while remaining true to their characters in the ring. They've leaned into cheers when they've gotten them. They were at Revolution. It was them versus, I believe it was the Outrunners. And, people in LA were not happy about the quality of the Outrunners ring work. They kind of dropped the ball a little bit, those two performers, Turbo and Truth, and the Hurt Syndicate were getting cheers. And they let Bobby and Shelton kind of play into that a little bit. They're not afraid to let them be charismatic. That's not who their character is.
Let's delve into the tag tournament because we already are here. It tied into this. I'll go to an email from Jason in Grand Rapids who goes, "Hey Wade and Tej, hope you're doing well. I peeked in on the show for the first time in a month or maybe a bit longer. I enjoyed Jet Speed and FTR's match, but did they ever clarify or even speculate who else may be in the new tournament? I'm not sure if it was meant to be a hook to keep the remaining teams under wraps, but it didn't have that effect for me. It more so felt like Tony Khan not wanting to commit in case of injuries, etc. And this leads me to my actual question. Will we ever see a tournament in AEW and any division that simply puts the 8 top competitors in a highly competitive winner-take-all scenario, or let's say 8 of at least the top 10 or 12? Thanks. Sorry if my question was phrased oddly. I'm trying to work out my CFL fantasy team for the week while the main event rolls on. That's it. People care enough about the Canadian Football League to have a fantasy league? Sorry, Canada. No, I'm joking. We can't joke about Canada in the United States, given the state of things. So that's off the table now for a while. So the brackets are empty, except for this match, which is weird. It's also weird they called it. Can you, off the top of your head? No, don't cheating, Tej. Can you tell me what they called this tournament to earn a title shot?
I just remember Forbidden Door Tag Team Title Tournament.
They called it the World Tag Team Title Eliminator Series. Why are we calling it Eliminator Series? It's like Tony Khan calls dinner a plate of nutrients and calories consumed for energy. Can we just call it what it is in plain English? It's a tournament for a title shot. It is not an Eliminator Series. It's so weird, to just change the wording like that.
Flair for the dramatic, I guess he's going for, but no, it was not a good.
Because people are going to go, wait, is this different than a tournament? And people are like, nope, it's just a tournament. Well, why didn't you call it that? I don't know, because it's an elimination series. It sounds more cool. I don't know. Maybe there's a difference, and and we're just not cool enough to pick up on it, which is possible. It's happened.
It's possible.
Speaking for myself. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't include the teams. To create mystery, or he's still working out I don't know. Any speculation, Tej, and open to the chat also.
I mean, it's rare because Tony Khan, for all the criticisms of on-the-fly booking, he's pretty consistent with his tournament participants. It's very rare that he leaves a bracket as empty as this. My only, I guess, hypothesis is that this is going to involve New Japan or CMLL players that he wants to keep secret for a pop. Or, perhaps he doesn't want to give away G1 results for another week or two. But even then, it really felt like we're leaving the brackets empty. You can't even just say this is the New Japan bracket, this is the CMLL bracket. There's precedent for that. The what was it? The OG international. It was the OG international title four-way for the vacant championship in 2023. In 2022, they had an entire bracket that was just the New Japan bracket, which Clark Connors won. That could have been a much more fun way to do this for Forbidden Door.
Well, and in the chat, Brian Solari says, I think Tony Khan didn't announce it because he has to rework the tournament because one of the guns got hurt. Zach Barber says, it's because of the injury to Colton Gunn. So Chris Johnson also says, I assume one of the teams could be Copeland and Christian Cage, and they don't want to fill out the brackets yet because we haven't gotten to that stage yet. Just basically, they might have reasons, but there should be some sort of presumptive logic, an ostensible reason that is presented to the audience about why. And
if we're noticing, valid or not, if we're noticing the reasons like this, then you haven't done your job.
It's as simple as the announcers going, Tony Khan has announced one of the 4 eliminator matches if they want to go there, first round matches, whatever. And next week, or check social media or on Collision, we'll announce another one. There are teams waiting on, pins and needles. They can use cliches if they want to find out if they've made the tournament or not. He could also say there's going to be Tony Khan knows these 2 teams deserve it, but there's some other teams he's not sure of, and he's going to be watching results closely over the next week to fill in some empty spots. I don't know. I mean, just give us a respective an explanation for something like you say, Tej. If we're talking about it, it stands out to people in the chat. Yeah, just explain why. Don't just do things arbitrarily that are weird and expect people not to go, wait, what's going on here? And is this ultimately going to make sense? So, that's where I think that's where Jason is coming from. Why we don't want to be talking about this. We want to be talking about the tournament. But if there's a good reason not to, come up with an ostensible explanation why you're not. JB from Detroit says, the line of the night was Taz saying, in New York, we have sharks and rats. Very good. Number 2, if looks could kill, the death stare that MJF gave Hangman after Hangman called him a gutless coward in their backstage promo would have put Hangman 6 feet under. Very strong acting and storytelling with subtle changes in facial features. I'm glad the announcers made mention of it too. Tej, so let's take this opportunity, since JB brings it up, to talk about the build. At the same time, they're building up Mox and Hangman for MJF and Hangman. And this is part of why nobody thinks Mox is going to win next week, because they're already advertising MJF's going to be the next challenger, and it doesn't make sense for him to go after Mox. So what do you think of how they're building up to this, and how do you feel about sort of ripping off or doing a tribute Money in the Bank gimmick with these contracts?
I mean, I'm always a big fan of a surprise title shot gimmick. I think it adds a little bit of volatility into weekly programming that, especially for a company like AEW that is more rigid with the way it books its title matches, it stands out. With a company called WWE that has like more shenanigans, the Money in the Bank shtick, there's only so many. You're muted, by the way, if you're talking.
That's WWE's motto: more shenanigans. WWE, more shenanigans. AEW, we're the best wrestle. WWE, more shenanigans.
More shenanigans.
Yes. Yep.
No, but there's only the Money in the Bank shtick. It just feels like, one more kind of surprise way to storyline yourself to a title shot, or, get someone into the main event. But with AEW, where there's, more emphasis on title eliminators, earn your way to a title shot, even though they've done away with the rankings, but that idea of you have to build your way up to the main event is a lot more present. Someone being able to jump the line in the way that the Casino Gauntlet does, it's interesting. I do think they really dropped the ball with it last year by doing nothing with Christian Cage, rather than having him stand around for 6 months and then waste the cash in. I liked what the fallout was. It was, the impetus for the patriarchy losing faith in him because, he's not being a good leader. He's thinking about himself. He's not acting rationally. There's potential. I like the fallout, and that's what made me think, all right, there's something else you can do with this, but I'm still skeptical.
Todd Martin just tore into AEW doing a derivative Money in the Bank gimmick. He's like, just because Vince McMahon did something, it works in WWE, but if AEW wants to stand out, don't just look like you're just a weak derivative copycat doing silly gimmicks where you undercut the credibility of championships by having a frankly pretty ridiculous way to become champion. I mean, WWE isn't, we joke about them being more, their motto more shenanigans, but they are about entertainment. Their commercial leading into Raw this week it's all about pop culture and social media trends. It's not about world championships and great athletes battling for an important prize. I mean, that's there, but it's not their marketing. AEW is supposed to be a sports league that took things more seriously. And is there an idea that Tony Khan hasn't copied from WWE in some derivative way that makes it look like all the good ideas were Vince McMahon's 15 years ago, and we're just going to copy them, but instead of a briefcase, we're going to use a metal clipboard? Is there something just image-wise where there's a generation of people who are so used to this just being the way wrestling is that it doesn't cross people's minds? Maybe AEW ought not go down this road because they think Money in the Bank is fun in WWE, so let's do our version of it.
It's one of those things where I could definitely see Tony Khan just being like, well, WWE, it's been around so long and they've done almost every idea you possibly can, so I'm just going to do what I think makes sense. And if it winds up being closer to WWE at points, then whatever, right? If you book the opposite, then you're boxing yourself in. That being said, when it's this blatant, just by the fact that WWE is number one and they're at the level that they're at, if you copy them this blatantly, it looks Bush League, which is just not what AEW needs right now. And,
I mean, we even had Athena Tej standing in the ring going, I'm about to do it. And then it didn't happen. So, they're copying it right down to the fake cash-in or the near cash-ins. And even if you're a fan of that, and fans pop for it, even if you're a fan of it, and I think there's compelling arguments for and against WWE doing it, just seems weird it feels tacky and not in the normal way that AEW feels comfortable in. It feels like a vestige of the late 2022 to mid 2023 era where they were really trying to get a little more sports entertaining, and it was working for one group of fans, but it really clashed with the way that they treated the rest of the show. Yes. Here's some comments in the chat. Standard Deviation said, I hate it. It feels anti AEW. Ryan Tolorio says, I hate that everyone is doing a Money in the Bank gimmick. Yes. Standard Sadler version 3 says, yeah, it's a joke. They copied the Money in the Bank gimmick. Scott TPA said, I hate the fact that they're copying the Money in the Bank gimmick. Nobody is advocating for this.
Really what I think is exacerbating everything is it's not just that they're copying the gimmick, but they've put it on the three performers that are most likely to treat the gimmick exactly the same as WWE would treat the Money in the Bank gimmick. Like, if you put this on a pure work rate guy, like a Kenny Omega or somebody, or like Hologram or Bandito or someone whose character doesn't necessarily lend themselves to like, oh, am I going to do it? I'm always watching. Ooh. Then it would have a little bit of credibility within the framework of AEW, and there would be a little more enthusiasm. It was like, all right, how does this work in this setting? But just the fact they went with Christian, MJF, and Athena, it's the treatment of it feels very, very WWE-ish, because that's the heel characters of those three. It just happens to skew a little more in that direction, and that's really doing it in.
And it's weird having MJF go, I earned this, I'm flaunting it, but I won't need to use it because I'm going to earn a title shot. And then Hangman's like, yeah, you bet you are. I don't fully understand MJF's point. I mean, it kind of do. It's like, he's basically heel going, I have this cheap way to win, this cheat card, but I'm not going to use it even though I have it. And Hangman's like, yeah, you should beat me fair and square. You have to earn it. I don't know. It feels, I guess, it feels a little convoluted to me. If MJF should just be, I don't know. Again, you're taking this gimmick and then you're having the guy who won it go, I'm not going to be one of those people who actually uses it. And I guess the heat is when he does, it makes it more cowardly. But yeah, even that just feels more, WWE copycat. Yeah.
I think if there was a year where this gimmick was put on a couple pure work rate people, it could be redeemed to the AEW hardcores. I think that by putting it on MJF and putting it on Athena this year, they've really cemented the idea of it being a Bush League WWE.
And Ryan Sawyer says, MJF's point is he wants to get his win back with a contract to be his backdoor if he loses. I get that. How many viewers are watching that going, oh, okay, so the heel wants to win with honor, but he has a backup plan that he earned. so I'm supposed to be mad at him. I don't know. I'm not. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it's an extra layer that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to this first. Standard Deviation said next week after the match, is MJF going to run out after Hangman and Mox and go and take 30 seconds trying to, quote, cash in? I mean, it's just so derivative, cliche, hack WWE copycat if they do that. Zach Barber says, and it feels contradictory to Athena. She's been cocky and a bully, but not overtly a coward like this. And Joe Schmo says, plus it looks cheap with them walking around with clipboards. I mean, it does kind of look like somebody went to Office Max going on a business sale and they found some, the last of the, a returned clipboard outside of the box that they got 20% off on. But it is a good weapon. It makes a good noise. So all is well. All right. Back to JB's email. I'm glad that Hangman made relatively quick and dominant work of Wheeler Yuta. I'm also glad the Death Riders didn't make a beatdown appearance. Hangman is getting to them. They're afraid, as they should be at this point in the story. Well, wait till the end of the show. So the Yuta match, I felt kind of bad because AEW gets criticized, rightfully so, for having these 12, 14-minute matches, sometimes longer, where you know who's going to win. But the whole point is, let's have some good wrestling first. But there's, like so rarely, so infrequently, any kind of an upset. Nor should there be. I mean, but Yuta feels like he's in the top half of good, credible wrestlers in a top heel group. He's a bit of a lackey. And Hangman is a world champion. So this is a minor quibble. But why was this, of all the matches, the one they chose to have only go like 7 minutes, where the guy the heel loses clean? He's in the top heel faction of the world champion. And he doesn't get to go at least 10 and have a, quote, good match with Hangman first. And I know the match was just a backdrop, a portal to get to the angle afterwards. But you shouldn't do things differently in the lead up to an angle. Everything that happens before an angle should feel like it naturally would have happened. It wasn't just formatted that way to fit into the segment before the commercial break. And that's kind of what this did. I don't know how many people thought about it, but it felt sort of demeaning and defining down even more for Wheeler Yuta. And I think he deserves a little bit better, but I'm not going to be the hypocrite who is critical of AEW for a clean win, doing exactly what we've been calling them to do for 5 years, which is when you know it's going to happen, get to it. I just don't know why they chose poor Wheeler Yuta to be the first in the first time they augmented this.
I mean, the only reason I'm hesitating, Zach Barber in the chat just saying because it's Yuta, LOL. Zach, yes. My guy, I appreciate you. Now, the only reason why I'm hesitant to agree with you 100% is because it definitely feels like post Mox's all-in loss, they're teasing Yuta becoming disillusioned with the Death Riders in the same way they were at the very beginning of the story. Because when the Death Riders won the trios titles in the beginning, before we had the fake out and he got on board, we saw Wheeler. He wasn't himself in ring. He was always the pin eater. He was missing all of his moves. And that was their way of signifying that he wasn't on board. He had lost faith in Jon Moxley. And I think we may be en route to resume that story now that we're out of the world title chase. And to be fair, that was the most engrossed I had ever been in Wheeler Yuta. He was doing some genuinely good physical acting, and I was getting behind him as a babyface. So if we're building to that, then I think that, going a little bit less time with Hangman was a good choice. If not, then I'll hesitantly agree with you. So I guess I'll come back to this video or this podcast in about 3 weeks, and I'll see what I think. I mean, I thought it was compelling when they did it, but I also felt it was compelling when Danny Garcia was going to break up with Jericho and then didn't. And then when he did, you're like, well, you had your chance for us to think you had a spine and you lost it. Getting around to the right decision after all this time, it's tougher to pull off. It does feel a little bit like that opportunity close to have it be as effective. But I mean, that might be what they're doing, but I don't know. I mean, it probably is what they're doing, unless they just want Wheeler to be a lackey going forward. Standard Deviation says Yuta's trembling was very sympathetic. No, I will say this. Say what you want about Wheeler Yuta. He's a really good physical actor. He can do those little things and sell his mindset in the ring very, very well. He's a great TV wrestler. Yep.
All right, back to JB's email. I'm glad Hangman made... Oh, I already read that. Darby Allin is turning into quite a crossover star for Warner Brothers Discovery. The guy goes from climbing Everest to swimming with sharks. There's enough adrenaline out there for him to dump. Yeah, it is very on brand for him to be part of Shark Week in that way. It's kind of strange to start a bracketed tag team tournament with literally only one block of brackets visible between FTR and Jet Speed. Yes, refer to our previous segment. Number 6 from JB. It's a little bit odd that babyface Adam Copeland cut a deal with a seemingly heel Hurt Syndicate to take out FTR. Granted, the Hurt Syndicate is basically treated as faces by the fans, but they typically have very heelish tendencies. I'm glad that it seems like we're going to be getting interactions with FTR and Hurt Syndicate and eventually Cope and Christian. That's a very strong top of the tag division and finally worthy opponents of the Hurt Syndicate. Edit. With a later revelation that Hurt Syndicate are growing frustrated with MJF, I suppose that this could be the beginning of a face turn for Hurt Syndicate rather than the tweener world they've been living in, which would be a market improvement. That said, boy, Lashley and Shelton were delighted to have MJF interfering. They totally acted as heels. And I said at the time, if they, in roughly so many words, if they turn them babyface in a month, we're not forgetting this. They are delighted at MJF helping them cheat to win. If they're badasses, they shouldn't want a schmuck like MJF interfering to help them win. And they were delighted to. They played into it. I can't come up with like the specific date and match, but I know that that's happened where you're just watching going, okay, these guys are not baby faces. They're not tweeners. They're not plugging their nose. They're loving MJF is cheating on their behalf. You can't then have them you can have them be baby faces, but that the fans still cheering Hurt Syndicate is a symptom of a complete broken connection between the audience and buying your storylines. And that is a fault of the booker. It is not an endorsement of Hurt Syndicate. It just means same thing as the one more time chance in WWE. Fans don't pull themselves in. They don't pull themselves into what's going on. They just go, yeah, a babyface getting destroyed with a devastating move by Bronson Reed. Keep doing it because it's cool and fun. And that is a problem, not a feature, Tej, right?
100%. 100%. As much as, I love the idea of wrestling being acknowledged as a spectacle rather than, it's 100% real and you have to buy into every detail. Like, no one thinks it's real anymore. Like, you can appreciate it as athletic feats rather than just the story. But when it gets to the point where people just aren't buying into the narratives at all, then you've got a problem. Then it's, yeah.
And I got news for you. People didn't think it was real in 1983. They didn't think it was real in 1993. They didn't think it was real in 2004. They didn't think it was real in 2015. Every generation thinks of the first generation that caught on. The difference isn't that people didn't know it was fake, because when I was a little kid, my mom came home from work and said, you know what? All the guys at work, Wade, say it's fake. And this was a long time ago. This was before Vince McMahon said in front of an athletic commission, we're scripted. Everybody knew it forever. That's the secret. People go, kayfabe is dead. It's been dead since like 1955 when the newspapers were mocking it in columns for being fake, and they wouldn't run odds, and the sports papers didn't cover it, and TV stations, when they did, had a smirk on their face and made fun of it. That's been going on for 75 freaking years. So young people today, learn your history. This is not new. The difference is not that people know it's fake now, so promoters and bookers shouldn't try to make it real. The difference is promoters and bookers have stopped trying to make it look real, so now people don't buy in, and it's a lesser experience.
100%.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I just found out it was fake last week.
And by the way, there's still people. This isn't to rip on your joke. There's still people who think it's funny to go, it's fake, right? Like they still people still say that. Like it's like nobody says it about Superman. Hey, Superman doesn't really fly and he's an actor. It's like, it's so stupid. It's not clever. Stop saying it, people, to people who are wrestling fan friends. But seriously,
you're not cool. No one thinks you're cool, wrestling fans, if you say that.
Yes. Standard Deviation said today's gen have been worked into believing everyone used to believe wrestling was real. Was there a more naive group of fans in the front rows going nuts and crying and getting more invested 40 years ago? Yeah, but you know why? Yeah. Because the show they watched was more realistic. They still had the same family and friends telling him, this isn't real. And they're like, I don't care. What Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy did to Kerry Von Erich, I'm losing sleep over it. Why? Because everybody played it straight. It was a more immersive experience that you could really get into. It's the same reason you today, watching a Netflix or HBO series, freak out when your favorite character's killed off and get emotionally moved by movies when there's a tragedy or a death or whatever. It's because they treat it seriously and you get pulled in, and pro wrestling promoters think they're anyway. So anyway, yeah. All right, let's keep rolling through the email here. Where is the angle with Chris Statlander and the Death Riders going? They haven't really touched on it in a while, and the Death Riders seem to be closer to the end of their act rather than the beginning. Is it possible Stat sees the light and joins the group opposing the Death Riders, which I assume would be led by Darby, in a blood and guts match so that Marina can be involved. Tej, what do you think?
I mean, I don't personally see that emotional journey happening for Chris without a full-blown heel run first. And I don't think we get anywhere near that by the time a Blood and Guts happens, if one happens this year at all. If I wanted a fantasy book, then just going off the past couple of months, Willow would be the most natural choice to be a babyface woman on a Blood and Guts team. I don't know where the Chris Statlander narrative is going, other than I do think it leads to a heel turn because it's fed into her character's journey of not just wanting to align with the Death Riders, but finding sympathy in their mission. And every time, she interacts with Wheeler, it makes sense to her on some level. In the same way that very early on in the Death Riders run, you started to see like some of the lower card guys saying, you know what, maybe they're right. Like, we need to toughen up. Like, there's a reason we're where we're at on the card. We need to mix it up, try something different. That's the reason we got Private Party winning the tag titles when we did. So I think that we will see a full-blown heel Chris Statlander again, because the women's division needs more heels outside of Athena and Megan Bayne. I don't think she joins the Death Riders in any meaningful way unless they're planned for a much longer feud following Mox's programs with Hangman and Darby. Because it could go one of two ways. It could either be, Mox does his stuff with Hangman, with Darby, and then Claudio turns on Mox and we have the dissolution. Or they could just continue to exist and just be pushed down the card slightly, in which case, they'll exist for another year or two in whatever form they do.
All right, let's go back to JB. Good commenter. I thought it was a good idea to have Will Ospreay come out after the news of his positive injury prognosis to endorse Swerve and Hangman and say he still wants rematches and the title is still a priority and denounce the Death Riders. A lot was accomplished in a short and succinct promo. There was a comment in the chat about how the way he delivered the news kind of came across like he was going to announce he was going to miss like a year of action. And then he goes, oh, I might be ready in a few weeks, or a month, whatever it was. That was so in the end, it actually kind of came across a little melodramatic. But if it's his way of saying I'm going to miss TV for a few weeks, I mean, I guess that's okay. I don't know. How'd you feel about? I mean, he didn't say for sure. He just says doctors say it's fixable, and then he's like, and I might be ready by Forbidden Door. And it's like, well, that's very optimistic.
I mean, it just felt like a standard babyface, I'm still here and I will still keep fighting promo. Knowing Ospreay, I really just said knowing Ospreay, like I actually know the guy, but just looking at his babyface run and how much he's loved the kind of cool moments, it would be in character for the Will Ospreay character to think like, right, I'm gonna build it up and say I have this crazy injury, but then say I'll be back in a month. That'll make me look really cool. It feels like, all right, I'm going for the badass reputation points. So I didn't buy too much into that. I did think the promo as a standalone promo was very, very well done. Classic kind of emotional babyface notes, put over the other babyfaces, made the title feel like the most important thing in the world, which Ospreay does better than really anyone else on the roster, to his credit. And, it brights him off for a couple of weeks, which frankly I think he needs, because Ospreay has been like one of the most prominent figures on AEW in 2025, and a few weeks break will do good for him to not burn out with casuals or hardcores. What did you think, Wade? Because I know Ospreay's delivery can be very hit or miss, and his presentation as a top babyface has always been a topic of discussion for you. So I'm curious what you thought.
I just thought it felt earnest and sincere, and I thought the delivery, intentional or not, made it sound like my career's at risk, and it almost was an Adam Cole-like moment. Like, oh God, what's he about to say? My neck is screwed up. I've got, and I hid it from people. And it just made it sound like he was having a Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole moment. And I thought it needlessly scared people if he's like, but I might be ready in a few weeks. Like, if all goes well, I'll be ready in a few weeks. It sort of implied, and if not, I'll be out a month or two. By the end, you're kind of thinking, well, wait, you just scared us for that? Like that was, that's why, I mean, I think he's just walked out and said, hey, I've had some neck issues that are bothering me. And because of, he played it in a storyline because of what the Death Riders did. I got a test, and now everybody knows I've been hiding something. I need to get it treated, but don't worry, everybody thinks I'll be fine in a few weeks. Like, I think you could have gotten there more efficiently and with less of a tone that felt like it was pulling from, the big Bryan Danielson or more recently Adam Cole retirement. It felt like he was I don't think you want a babyface to look like he's trying to scare people through either intentionally or just lack of social skills about the tone to take when you're just telling people I might miss a month. And that's kind of what it ended up sounding like.
Yeah, I don't think that's a promo. I don't think that's a promo that needed to be done in ring. I think doing that in ring with Shivani holding the mic made it feel like it was poised to be a bigger deal than it was.
Yeah.
I think that could have been a backstage segment. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the beginning and that's the beginning and the end of my critique. All right, the stable of Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julie Hart is intriguing to me. I really hope that Tekla becomes the leader of the group and that the stable elevates all three. It seemed like Tekla was posed for a feud with Jamie Hayter upon her debut. Another Hayter injury might have derailed plans, or was it something else entirely? Or was it meant to be a one-off segment from the get-go? Yeah, what do you think of Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart? We had a vignette tonight that's trying to establish the tone and the vibe of the group.
I mean, I'm always down for more alliances and more stables in the women's division. I think that was the weakest part of the division for its first few years, so that everybody felt like on their own little island. You couldn't really have bigger stories in the division as a whole. I'm more mixed on this idea than I really thought I would be, just because it feels like the only reason they've been paired together so far is their general vibe and presentation. It doesn't feel like Tekla's methods of drawing heat, which for those of you who have never seen Stardom, I would highly recommend checking out some of Tekla's work there. She draws heat like MJF. She pisses off the crowd. She grandstands in a way that no one else on Stardom was really doing at the time, and that's what made her feel so unique. Putting her with Julia and Sky right now, it doesn't feel like the exact same style. And I worry that one or more of the acts is going to be tamped down in an attempt to make them all feel cohesive. I like it in theory. I really do hope that it leads to more screen time for Tekla, because I think Tekla is one of the greatest underrated signings that AEW's had in the past couple of years. But I don't know if this was the right launch pad so far.
Yeah, fair enough. The juxtaposition of Toni Storm in the balcony last week for her victory speech and Athena in the balcony this week, witnessing Billy Starks lose to Storm, was a strong visual. What do you think of the setting here? This 99-year-old building. AEW might be in it long enough to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Aragon Ballroom. It's a small crowd. They're embracing it. The atmosphere feels cool, but not like super major league, but it doesn't affect my viewing of the show because it's an intimate atmosphere. I don't know. What do you think? I'm mostly positive on it.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I think that AEW is not quite at a point where they can be running stadiums or major league arenas every single week, and they've definitely maxed out their usage of these more unique venues to enhance the product. We saw it with Claudio's entrance. We saw it with the Young Bucks. Last week, taking advantage of the Aragorn's very old kind of back rooms, basement rooms, to highlight the Young Bucks are poor and their dressing room is this absolute crappy basement room. That was good, and it's a usage of the venue that really enhances the presentation. Toni Storm, I think, has been such a beneficiary of the Aragorn Ballroom. It feels like an old theater box whenever they put her in the balcony. It adds to her presentation, and having Athena up there this week was a very, very fun touch. I absolutely loved it. To the one guy in the chat a couple of weeks ago that was saying we should call that balcony Tony's box. Well, that's hilarious. I saw that.
Yep. Very, very well done. Points. All right.
And go to horny jail. You stop that.
I'm yes, or innuendo jail. I'm not too familiar with Alex Windsor's work, but I have to say that I enjoyed her violent, hard-hitting offense. If Athena loses her ROH title to Windsor on Collision this Saturday, I think it's a pretty clear sign Athena has been called up full-time for all intents and purposes to AEW. I'm just curious if Starks comes with her. I also imagine we'll get a Storm Windsor versus Athena Starks tag match, probably in one of the next few Wednesdays. Your thoughts on that, Tej?
I mean, look, if they're leaning into Ospreay and Windsor's relationship in kayfabe, they're doing a great job in making them seem like two peas in a pod. Windsor just coming out, no frills, and just saying, well, you want to interfere with this babyface, then I'm going to beat your ass for it. It's a statement. I mean, she came out, a lot of people noticed her gear, her presentation. She looked a lot like Lita, and she had that kind of like no frills, like hard-hitting style to her. I think in terms of just general vibe, they've made a statement with who Alex Windsor is. They've given her hype packages before she even debuted. I think that she feels reminiscent of the original Hater Hits Hard presentation that Jamie Hayter had.
Yeah,
and I think that, especially with her old connections with the UK scene, Eve and Rev Pro, they've set her up for a big moment at Forbidden Door. Whether that's a tag match like people were suggesting, or perhaps a 6-man with some people at Eve, or Stardom, I don't know. I do know that, I don't think we have to worry about Alex Windsor getting lost in the crowd.
Next from JB, I do like how Ricochet seems to be being used to elevate the credibility of Gates of Agony, or GOA, as he now says they should be called. And he's doing a good job of it. I'd much rather have GOA profile raised to go after the tag titles rather than have 3 of them pursue the stagnant trios titles. What do you think of this landing place currently, Tej, for Ricochet? Being the leader of a faction, he searched for talent, he's settled on these 2.
I mean, the idea of, all right, the little guy being surrounded by 2 hulking behemoths that do his bidding, it's a tale as old as time. It's a setup that always works. And it's a testament to Ricochet that I buy him as the mouthpiece of a group at this stage in his career. But, I think him with the Gates is such a great visual because they tower over him. I think that Bishop and Toa Liona are criminally underused. They have such an amazing presence. They're not just stoic. They got swagger to them. There was a backstage segment they beat up AR Fox, and they were having fun with it. They were enjoying themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great, accent to Ricochet's more psychotic personality. It's a combo that was unexpected, but I like. That's kind of where I'm at right now. What do you think, Wade?
I'm okay with it, and my tone is part of it. I think Ricochet was on being another MVP, Don Callis, John like all the factions. I think having Ricochet just be a guy who people are going, oh, he's really good. I could see him moving up the card. And now he's with the tag team that had like a 1-in-372 record in AEW. I don't really know. But I mean, the perception of them wasn't strong. I think you need to tell a story that there's something about the alliance with him that's adding credibility to them. And I don't know that they put any thought into that. He just wanted more TV time or people to play off of or people to interfere on his behalf. So, I mean, I'm fine with it, but I fear that it actually, even though they have kind of their reasons for doing it, it's going to just kind of clutter a surprising boost to Ricochet's perception among fans to now be associated with people who are not perceived as prestigious. It makes it seem like that's the best you could do. It's kind of like, a small market NBA team, and when free agency is over and all the big names have signed, and then they like try to tout, a couple, just mid players, like, oh, we got them and we got them with the mid-level exception. It's like, yeah, it just sort of does feel a little bit minor league and leftover. Yeah, and they haven't done enough to make up for that. It doesn't seem like they're even cognizant of the benefits or need to do that.
I mean, I will also say, and like agreeing with you there, I will also say that it would have been fun for Ricochet to be the one person on the AEW roster that cannot find anyone to team with him because he's just so universally disliked.
Yep.
And, it would have been something unique, especially in a promotion that's so faction heavy. I am sad that isn't really being followed up on. But hey, you know what? As long as I can keep getting distracted by the fact that Toa Liona looks like Jacob Fatu, then that's enough to tide me over for at least 2 weeks. Because my God, it's uncanny.
They should have them destroy people on Dynamite, some squash matches, figure out, how are we supposed to feel about them? I don't know. I mean, but at least I do like the format of these shorter backstage interviews with people who aren't the main people. I like getting more of that. So, I mean, if we're at the beginning stages of telling some stories and it just doesn't feel like the stories are told yet, but they continue building on it, then that's a positive. All right.
Quick thing before you move on. Do you think we get Gates of Agony in the tag team title tournament?
I would think so. I mean, why give them TV time? put him with Ricochet, but they'll probably lose in the first round. I mean, I don't know how that's good. Okay, JB says, I'd love for either Hurt Syndicate or Hangman to get involved in the inevitable Briscoe MJF match, but I give MJF a plausible reason to lose while simultaneously giving Briscoe a credible win so that his record and strength of schedule will start to match how fans view him. MJF will be fine. It would be nice to have Mark firmly in the upper mid-card with the credibility to visit the main event when called for. I have a problem with this, too, tonight, is it just felt like rerun season. MJF is building up to this thing. There's another guy from Delaware, and you're living in his shadow, and it must suck to have everyone look at you and wish you were dead and your brother was alive, or they respect your brother but not. Didn't we go through this multiple times already? Like, this just, it feels very played out, one time too many. And if, if all he said is, if there's some self-awareness, like, if you're tired of me talking about your brother, tough. I'm going to talk about your brother some more. Like, just lead into it by acknowledging this has been done to death. And, acknowledge it. But instead, it was kind of played like, I got something original to say. There's another person from Delaware. I don't know. I was ready to move on from this. And now they're trying to eke. It's sort of like with Hangman and Mox. They had a good story for it. This just felt like a redo, like a retake. Like, oh, let's redo it, but tweak it where Mark's a little more angry. I don't know. So that's the thing that stood out to me more than the credit, Briscoe getting credibility from a win or anything like that. Although obviously that'd be good to do because fans like him.
Mm-hmm. It definitely feels like they've really leaned into Briscoe being the Mick Foley of the 2025 AEW roster. He's the guy that every babyface loves, every heel hates. It's plausible to stick him in any feud with no build-up because it just fits his character that he will fight for a righteous cause no matter what, and he's just so dang lovable that people get on board. But I do think they're starting to hammer it home a little bit by talking about, his beloved dead brother and leading on his real-life history. Like, we get it. Just let the man do his chicken farmer kung fu. That's enough to get him over at this point. He's getting main event segments. He's in contention for titles. Like, people buy him as a title contender. Like, this MJF promo, it was not needed. Or it could have been drastically shortened down. Sorry.
What I worry is it's less. I get Mick Foley because of the ring style. I think it's a little more Zack Ryder in terms of how he's actually booked. I mean, I do. I mean, he's like, like a couple of weeks ago, Todd talked about this on the VIP show, The Fix, where he was like making goofy sounds after that hardcore angle with MJF leading it all in. And Renee laughed. She couldn't help it. And it's like, wait, your brother just got like, MJF just ripped into your dead brother and you just decide you're going to play up being corny and goofy and over the top and crack Renee up. It felt tone deaf. And now we're doing the kosher pickle thing, which, it's fine. It's cute, but is it the right insult to keep going back to when someone is talking about your late brother like that? I'm not saying he's Zack Ryder in any other way other than he's that fan favorite who gets a tease of a push, but ultimately loses and people still kind of like him. And he finds a way to stay over, but he's lower card. And so I think there's a blend of the two. And go ahead, Tej. Yeah.
The only reason I'll disagree is because it does not feel like he's actually being punked out. It feels like that's just authentically who he is. Mark Briscoe, the face, no matter where he's been on the card, has come up with these incredible lines. And we saw it in the conglomeration era, seeing Kyle O'Reilly in the background just saying, oh, this is awesome. Is he actually saying this? I'm just getting in the vibe. Seeing Renee just actively just be like, okay, this is incredible. It didn't feel like she was breaking because she thought he was funny. It was just like, Jesus Christ, this man is insane, but I'm feeling the momentum. I love it.
But do you want to do an angle as heavy as what preceded it and follow it with that like frivolous tone of, oh, he's wacky, he's zany, and instead, and he completely changed his promo style after All In. It's like he realized what happened and completely changed it in that post All In interview, and it felt like a course correction because I thought it extinguished the everything that the previous segment with MJF and Mark Briscoe aimed to do for something cute and fun. And I don't think cute and fun is worth extinguishing. You shouldn't do the hardcore angle to begin with if you're just going to do cute and fun and pull the rug out from under any intense feelings that Mark apparently had.
I'll agree with you there. I think they are kind of stretching how broad they can make Mark Briscoe without making him seem like a joke. The only reason the Zack Ryder comparison really kind of hit me is, again, that was the era that I really kind of became a hardcore wrestling fan, and seeing the powers that be like undercut his run very blatantly and punk him out was so dang infuriating, and not for any reason that WWE intended. Yeah.
My comparison
So
to Zach
that
is meant to be
immediately I'm just
triggering.
like, nope. Yeah.
It's meant to be triggering because it's a
well,
call to action.
mission accomplished.
It's a call to action to get more, to treat Briscoe more like Mick Foley and less like Zack Ryder. There's a mix. I'm not saying it's all Zack Ryder, but like if he doesn't seem like someone who takes himself seriously and he's just going to be woo goofball with, you know, kosher pickle and babbling and all that, why have him in a hardcore angle that's meant to make it seem like now you brought out a different side of him, and then he didn't have the instinct to know, or the company didn't have the instinct to know, yeah, we can't have him go back to the normal, lovable, goofy, zany guy. We need to table that until he's done with MJF, and they didn't have the wisdom to do that.
Yeah, it feels like they've established goofy underdog, and they're trying to pivot, and they're kind of oscillating from either is he goofy or is he the underdog, and they're trying to finally like pick a lane in the middle this week.
Well, in Zach Barber, AEW defender, sometime not always, says that's the thing, Wade. I don't think he was being cute and fun. I think the idea was he was so angry he couldn't think straight or get his words out. Well, then they failed in their mission to get across the idea that he was so emotionally upset, because it was straight out of a Looney Tunes cartoon and it made Renee laugh. So if the idea was he's not being cute and fun, well, do a better job of not coming across as cute and fun and zany then, because that's clearly the end result of it. So bad execution, bad instincts. It made Renee laugh, and it made it seem like this has not shaken Briscoe out of the zone. If that promo leading it all in was supposed to be him, if showing that, oh, now he's a different person. I mean, I'm sorry, that was not a different person. That's the role he's played in almost all of his promos, and he didn't break from it. But again, I think Zach, I think you're defending something that they wouldn't even defend, because Brar completely changed his tone after All In and in the follow up, and even tonight. All right. Let's see what's next here. JB says, my prediction for the two teams in Blood and Guts, which I predict will happen between Forbidden Door and All Out, are Death Riders, Mox, Claudio, Yuta, Gabe Kidd, and Marina. And Team 2, Darby, Mark Briscoe, Swerve, Hangman, and Statlander. Maybe I'll add another man to the Death Riders if Ospreay is up for the match. That intense by that point. Have they lost some momentum by not having Darby on the show, Tej, the last couple of weeks coming out of All In? He made his return because you got to have surprises on pay-per-views. But now he's doing a Shark Week thing, and he's not really part of the post, all in world at this point. It was Dennis Klein who says the lack of Darby in the last two Dynamites is very disappointing. Some people aren't a fan, but a lot more, like I, are huge fans.
Look, Klein, I'm right there with you. I'm a huge Darby fan. He was one of my favorite of the AEW OGs. I think it's just the unfortunate consequence of what happens when you have this guy who's set up as a major player in the Death Rider story, and then you write him off television because he's going to go do other stuff, which, hey, fair play to him. That's a once-in-a-lifetime moment going to climb Everest, but you can't just plug him back in and have him be a major part of the storyline again immediately after they had such a monumental match at All In and completed the main story largely without him. I feel like, they've kind of realized that they don't want Hangman to be diminished as the main protagonist, the big hero of the story, so they're kind of easing Darby in and having him on the fringes, and he's doing the Sting thing. He's lurking from the shadows, ready to pounce, ready to settle his score with Mox. And I will agree, I don't think it was the most effective use for him. I don't think that he has the momentum he had before he left, because keep in mind, going into 2025, people thought that we would end 2025 with Darby being the guy. They thought Darby would be like the face of AEW, and we are very, very far away from that. I don't think, his star power is diminished. I don't think that, there's been any irreparable harm, but I do think he has nowhere near like the main event momentum that he had at the beginning of the year. And I think AEW's been cognizant of that, and they're not trying to plug him back in like he's a hero on the level of Hangman or Ospreay or Swerve. They're kind of keeping him in the background until the time is right to cycle him back in.
Yeah, and I think the issue that is concerning is Darby should have felt like, I mean, yes, he's doing Shark Week stuff now, and so does that play into I was climbing Mount Everest and now I'm serious business, I got to get back in here. He showed up in the balcony last week in the end of the show, just a little crow sting thing, but then he doesn't. We're not hearing from him. He's not like in. It's all's well that ends well is a cliche, and it sort of applies, but sometimes things end well enough to not look back at mistakes that were made. I don't know. I can't think of a clever way to say it. Sometimes things don't end well. They just end sort of well enough. And I guess the idea with Darby is things will probably end well enough for him. But if he's gone that long, have a high impact return and be in the Darby Allin business. And it's sort of like, well, yeah, I appeared last week. And he's on Shark Week this week. It's just sort of like, it's like he was never gone now. And he's not really involved in what's happening. And it might not be convenient storyline wise, but he sort of dropped in at All In, said hi last week, but he's not a integral main character. And in part, and this is why wrestling booking is difficult. Sometimes it's made more difficult needlessly, but they're trying to have the Hangman Mox rematch first before everyone shifts their attention. And they're also talking about MJF against Hangman. So if you have Darby come in and his next feud, it might be with Mox. Well, Mox is trying to win the world title first. So I get the explanation for it, but I'm just saying, and I think the comment in the chat is, it's sort of taking away from the idea that when he comes back, we're in the Darby Allin business instead of him hanging out in the crowd or hanging out in the balcony. And so it's sort of like they want it halfway. Like he's back, but we're not quite ready to make it a big deal. So we're just going to have him kind of lurking while other things get settled. And then, but by the time it's time for him to be a big deal, it'll be okay. But it's not the same as, my God, Darby's back, and now we're in the Darby Allin business. And I think that's what the comment in the chat is about, and the kind of the vibe of him sort of lurking for a couple of weeks and not being really involved. So,
yeah,
you're nodding along, Tej. You agree?
Yeah. It's the unfortunate consequence of having a protagonist, and when that protagonist is gone, you develop new protagonists in the meantime, right? Darby comes back, and now they have this quandary. Do we stick him back at the level he was before? Are we in the Darby Allin business at the risk of taking some of the luster away from Hangman Page, this guy that we put so much resources into and have hammered home that he is the guy, he is the protagonist, the main character of AEW? Do we do that in order to maintain Darby standing in the main event scene, or do we try and do this half-in, half-out version where we kind of slowly lead Darby back in, but the investment's just not there anymore from a certain subset of fans? And, they made their choice, and it feels like the presentation of Darby has suffered as a result. I don't think it's not or anything like that.
It's exactly.
It's not what it could have been.
We're nitpicking. Not every criticism needs a pushback that we're saying it's doomed, it'll never work. It's more in our current state. It feels like a little deflating. It felt like there's all this anticipation, and it's like you win the Super Bowl and they're like, in January or February now, and they're like, oh, we're gonna have the parade on April 20th. It's like, whoa, wait, what? I'm not even thinking about football then. That's gonna be it's like that's kind of where we're getting. It's an unfortunate side effect of the pace of the booking. Although Adam Kidd says being all in on the Darby business will be a mistake. So anyway, all right. Final comment from JB. What are the chances MJF attempts to or does cash in on Hangman, assuming he beats Mox next Wednesday on Dynamite? Also, I prefer banning everyone from ringside rather than the always worked around steel cage or Hell in a Cell stipulation. My question is, why does banning people from ringside? This is what I don't think people understand, even looking at the chat. If you say people are banned from ringside, they're not allowed to interfere. No one's ever allowed to interfere. Like, that's against the rules, unless it's a triple threat, in which there's no rules, which is so stupid. But if you're at ringside or you're not at ringside, it's illegal to interfere. So why does banning somebody from being at ringside? It just makes it less convenient to interfere, but they still will. It's not like there was any step. So the idea is, yes, the cage has workarounds, but the fact that people climb cages or go through cages or cut open cages, that's stupid too. That's a gimmick that should have been protected for decades. It hasn't been, so now people just think that's normal. But I just don't think no one's allowed at ringside. I think that's the translation for me when I hear a babyface say that is, I'm going to make it slightly less convenient for your cohorts to screw me out of a world title because there's no other stipulation that says anything. Because, again, think it through. They're banned from ringside. What happens when they come to ringside? Like, the ref's back is turned and they interfere and then they run away. Like, that's what happened. Like, so it just does not make any sense. Standard deviation says, I'm with you on the ban from ringside, Wade. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but back to the initial point here, Tej, does MJF try to cash in next week?
I mean, it would definitely fit his character. He doesn't seem, his back's kind of been pushed against the wall. He doesn't have the Hurt Syndicate. And now it feels like he's like, oh, I've got something to prove. It definitely would be in character for him to jump in prematurely and rather than waiting around for a few months. I don't know if we get a successful cash in or just a teased cash in, because this is an underrated part of Hangman and MJF's long percolating feud that I absolutely love. Is MJF has made it very clear. He's like, I am the representation of all your insecurities, your depression. He goes, Hangman, I see you for what you are, a failure. So I can see them really drawing out the cash in because MJF now has a vested interest in just screwing with Hangman's mind because he enjoys it. So like teasing a cash in actually like feeds into their feud in a way that it might not for just a normal kind of face heel relationship. I don't know if we get a final cash in. I do think we get a tease next week.
Good. Yeah, just like WWE, a tease of a cash in.
Good.
Yeah. Yes. Tej, we also had a FTR Jet Speed tag match. It was, I think, the longest match of the night. Went 18 minutes. Some good action. Just thoughts on that match, the way it's presented, the quality of it, the outcome. We've talked a lot about the promos and the angles, but the match itself, what'd you think?
I mean, FTR, they work heel better than so many people out there. They're so great at being bases that are also athletic themselves. I think Jet Speed is one of AEW's kind of best babyface offerings at the time, Jesus, and at the present. And, you know, it feels like they're very much committed to making this work because they're now performing as Jet Speed on the Indies, which is crazy for a situational tag team. I thought the match was good. I don't think it kicked into the second gear like it really could have because of Stokely's interference. I really do hope we're not at a point where we start needing to protect people by having matches end in interference. Like FTR and Jet Speed, they're both near the top of the tag division. One of them can take a loss and they're not hurt. Let those losses be clean. I don't think the Stokely interference really added much this time around, as much as I love that short little bastard, but that just really soured the ending for me.
I'll bring up a comment on Taz, not because you just said short little bastard. Do not say that. That's not why I'm bringing up Taz now. At the end of the match, Taz said, we're late in the match. And seconds later, like 30 seconds later, 20 seconds later, there was a pinfall. Stokely interfered, used his crutch to add leverage to Dax's cover. This is a problem in announcing these days. And I think I think it was in WWE recently too. Announcers should not know when the match is about to end. We don't know when we're deep into a match. You do not know where you're deep. Just because your format sheet said this is going 18 minutes and you see the clock say 17, you're not supposed to refer to it being late in the match. You can say deep into the match. You're deep into the match. But when you say late in the match, by definition, you're saying the finish is coming soon. So anyway, that just a little thing. Just to make note of.
Did they announce a time limit for the match? Did they announce a time limit? Did they say a 20-minute time limit?
Not that that would. By the way, had they done that, then I'd have to withdraw my criticism and apologize. But I don't think they did. So, chat.
Yeah, I genuinely missed that. Yeah, I genuinely didn't catch if they did or not. So, chat,
and I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember the other instance when that happened, and I commented on it in one of my written reports. And I was commenting on it before the match ended. I'm like, oh, now we know the match is going to end because the announcer just slipped up and said, might have been Wade Barrett, in fact, who said it. And I was like, ooh, that's he's usually sharper than that. So yeah, just if you're on commentary, keep in mind, you do not know when the match is going to end. Don't slip up and start talking about it. And you have the Michael Cole method of talking about what a great effort someone has put forth, kind of prepping you for them to lose. You know, oh, this has been a great effort. It's like, yeah, you're telling us within a minute now or 2 minutes the match is going to end with the person you're giving credit to lose. So there's some formulaic stuff. I know why they do it because they want to hit their points and there's a psychology, but it's like the announcers saying he's got him before the kick out, except when there's going to be a pin, and then they don't say he's got him because they don't want to quote give it away, and then they ironically give it away. They've been better about that recently. That was a Vince McMahonism. Tej, anything else on the show that you want to bring up? I mean, with Swerve and Hechicero, Don Callis with a great, I think intentionally grating introduction to Hechicero. Kind of hard to listen to. We had Brisco and Claudio have a good 15-minute match. Yeah, anything else you want to bring up before we sign off?
I mean, I'm curious to think I'm curious to ask, what are your general thoughts on the Don Callis family's treatment right now and the Swerve Okada feud? You know, because it's being built up as this kind of like marquee thing going into Forbidden Door. but they're leaning on Okada's history with Callis, which is a little more limited than it really could be. What are your general thoughts on them? Yeah.
I think it's like perpetual C grade at best. I mean, I like Okada and Callis. I wish Callis cut a go home promo before All In, and he didn't. And great managers, best of their era managers, can't wait for that moment, insist upon it, and they deliver. And I don't really, he didn't do that. And then he came out today and was sort of almost channel turning grating in his introduction to Hechicero. I think it was meant to be like this, heel generating thing. And then, he went on commentary, and I think Callis leans too much on cute meta stuff. I just said something I'm not supposed to say. Oh, I'm gonna pop the people in the back with that comment, and the smart fans will be commenting. He leans too much on that, and it feels very like 2002 to be doing stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think Callis can be perpetually. I think he's perpetually adding to the case that he has been vastly overrated, and I say that from someone who has advocated when he has shown moments of greatness to do that consistently, get more TV time, bring it every week, stand in the ring with your crew, show me you've put hours and hours of thought and planning into the dynamic between your team, establish a baseline of who's who and what hierarchy. I always go to the Bloodline as an example of that. We knew the all the cross dynamics of everybody in the group. None of that is going on with Callis. We don't know if Okada even has ever met the rest of the Don Callis family practically. I mean, it's just so no. I mean, there's some aspects of it that are good. I don't know if the average AEW fan could quickly rattle off everybody in the Don Callis family right now, because they just sort of, oh, there's Lance Archer. Oh yeah, Brody King. No, he's not with them. No, it's that other guy. It's like Brian K. It's like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't feel prestigious. They don't really, if you're part of the Callis family, they don't establish that that's a huge deal. Sometimes it is just sort of that, it's just that, oh, we need people to interfere who aren't being used otherwise. And that's kind of my Gates of Agony thing with Ricochet. It's like, oh, maybe this will give a little boost to them, or they'll be useful for Ricochet. But you have to have that presupposition of why would Callis bring them together. And I just don't think they've done enough of the work to establish that. So you asked Tej, what do you think?
I mean, I completely agree. I think that the Callis family does not feel like a unit. I think you've got some kind of interesting interfaction dynamics with, Mark Davis before, his injury, him and Kyle Fletcher trying to get on the same page within the Callis family. You've got Takeshita not liking that Okada's there with them for the time being. Yep. You've got Hechicero and Rocky and Takeshita kind of doing their thing in New Japan, CMLL. That's all fun, but it really does feel like it's getting a little out of hand with 10 members now. And, it's an ode to the OG Heenan family, where it's, Bobby Heenan getting his grubby little paws on anyone he could that could make him money. And sure, I get it. And it provides any babyface that goes up against one person in the Callis family. Now you've got 7 or 8 matches you can book for the next couple episodes of Dynamite. I get the positives, but there is a balance between making the family feel cohesive and not just a booking plot device. And I think they're starting to lean a little too far away from that. I think, yeah.
Well, and part of the issue with the Callis family is often it's people who aren't around or can't be around consistently. And so it's hard to get that momentum. If Takeshita's in the G1, all of a sudden you're pausing these little storyline droplets that are out there, but you don't get that follow. But it's sort of like with Darby. It's like, he's back, tune in Dynamite, see, oh, it's a big deal. He was gone for so long. Oh, just a little glimpse of him. Okay, well, by next week we'll follow. Oh no, just kind of hanging out. No, he's doing Shark Week. Okay, well that's it seems like his priority.
Cool.
So yeah, so like with Callis family, I just like get in the Don Callis family business, and everyone just sort of showing up and just kind of, it seems like Callis just kind of shows up and does his shift. I'm going to make some snarky comments on commentary and boast in a generic way about my latest member being great. But I don't know, doesn't feel like there's a lot of layering and thought into it. And then you just have things that start and don't get followed up on. And I know injuries screw things up. And I always try to, account for that. I tried to, and then the MJF storyline that got derailed by injuries and all that. But a couple years ago, that was awful. But it still didn't need to be as awful as it was. So, yeah, I mean, Chris J in the chats at the Callis family starting to seem like the flock from WCW with random guys that are just there to lose in it. Yeah, and
that's a throwback.
Sadler, yeah. You'd never want to be compared to, like, well, I don't know.
Hey, okay, to be fair, the Flock was one of the highlights of late stage WCW. I think it was Raven versus, I think it was Saturn or somebody. That was one of the best mid-card feuds I've ever seen.
You can.
My little tangent.
No, I just not a high compliment. The best part of late stage WCW. I mean, that the bar is so low on what that means. It's. I mean, there was almost nothing redeemable about late stage WCW. Sadler version 3 says Callis is like the cartoon villain that appears with a new ally every episode. Derek Mitchell says, yeah, like I said, he's a Paul Jones army, Skandar Akbar's army. Reminds me of the Don Callis, but very ineffective. Skandar Akbar had an effective army in world-class championship wrestling. Paul Jones was very much like, second, third tier manager, and just kind of even if you didn't know what was going on, you'd think, oh, he's a hanger-on. Zach Barber to the rescue of the Callis family says, Callis family, Okada Unified Champ. Kyle's about to be TNT Champ. Takeshita's wrestling in the most prestigious tournament in wrestling. That's a point. Where are these? How is that being driven home on television? Zach says, you may not personally care about the G1, but that doesn't make it any less prestigious. Doesn't matter whether you think it's prestigious or I do. Of course it's prestigious. And it doesn't matter if you care or not. What matters is in the canon of Dynamite, is it's being
not portrayed as,
Yeah, is it like Don Cal? It's a weird comment, Zach. I'm sorry. But and I know, and by the way, Zach's responding to Adam Kidd. So this isn't New Japan, Zach. I don't care about New Japan. Unified, whatever it is, the TNT is title is down as bad as the 24/7 title, and that is I wouldn't go that far, for sure.
Yeah, that's Adam. That's harsh. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
But Standard Deviation said it's Don's job to maximize the value he has, and he's not doing that. Just I want Don Callis to show up and go, this show is about us, and I'm coming with so many ideas, and it's not his job to book the show, so I don't want to put it all on Callis. Tony Khan, Don Callis, whoever, they should just be going, you're the top heel manager. You're the top heel faction. We have some huge names in Okada and Fletcher and Takeshita wrapped up in you. We have some heavy, we want to, and we want to portray who they are and what the dynamic is, and understand what their role is and why they're here, and be consistent on it. And it's just not consistent. Adam Kidd said I was being harsh for harsh effect because Zach is Zach. Okay. Intra chat.
Intra chat rivalries.
Very much so. All right. Anything else, Tej, before you wrap up? I got storms coming through, so I'm gonna try to save this file and go hide in a basement somewhere. We got a bunch of deep red clouds coming overhead here. Why do you laugh? We're in tornado country.
I'm in Los Angeles. It is a balmy 82 degrees right now, and I was not expecting. Yeah, well, we got to end this podcast so I can go hide in my basement.
Well, I mean,
not what I was expecting you to say.
I think I'm kind of done. I mean, I'm willing to stay here and risk my life. But by the way, it was 90 degrees. It averaged 90 degrees the last week here in Minnesota. But we've had a couple days of severe thunderstorms in between sweltering 90-degree weather. So no, seriously, anything else you want to add? Now realize if you bring up something random and stretch the show out, you could be risking my life. I hear the thunder.
So let's talk about Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door, TNT title matches. Let's talk about all these. No, the only thing I will say is that going into Forbidden Door, very quick comment, I was very hesitant on Forbidden Door's new placement following All In. I'm starting to like it because Forbidden Door on its own is a show that doesn't require as much promo time and build-up, so you have been able to focus more on the fallout of All In without immediately looking to the next pay-per-view as heavily, and I've liked that. Aside from that, that's all I got.
All right, very good. I'm looking at the radar. It looks like the storm has shifted a little south, so I'm probably safe until about 11:30. Until about 11:30, in about an hour, maybe 40 minutes. Then I might have to go to the basement. No sirens blaring yet. Adam Kidd, by the way, fighting words. Forbidden Door is hurting the TV right now. Yes.
Interesting.
And Standard Deviation says I like Forbidden Door as the first pay-per-view after the biggest show of the year. All right,
I
so
agree.
yeah. All right. Debating going to All Out. All right, so we'll end there. Other than everyone support us, go VIP. We've got great membership benefits. It's crazy cool. You can learn wrestling history. You can listen to endless podcasts dating back more than 20 years, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s. Learn about wrestling history, because a lot of it sort of repeats itself in disguise, and there's so many amazing. This business is just fascinating, and I've been privileged to cover it for better part of 4 decades now, and so much of that, the vast majority of it is unlocked when you go VIP. So PWTorch.com/go VIP. Plenty of ways to sign up through Spotify, Patreon, your Apple account, credit card, debit card, PayPal. Different tiers, different benefit packages, customizable podcast feeds that you do not need to do advanced passwords and a bunch of complicated setup. We have a really slick system to get you up and rolling with a single click. So check it out, PWTorch.com/go VIP. And if you like our show but don't like commercial breaks, you can pay to eliminate them. We were doing that before all these other streaming services started doing it, because it helps us do what we do and stay in business. So we think we give you a lot in return for that membership fee. Full details again, PWTorch.com/go VIP. Thanks to the chat as always. Really appreciate your contributions, and shout out to Ozzy Osbourne. And we will talk to all of you next time.